Hey guys, so I wanted to touch base on another mod that I was looking at that I've had installed. It's called Better Wards, and there is so much more you can do with this ward than just have them kind of sit there and protect your house with the little blue shield and the noise that it makes. This mod dev did fantastic on overhauling and upgrading the wards. If you see this white dotted outline, this shows you what that ward covers. Now I have another ward inside here, and that's where these lines are coming from. So the protection does overlap each other, which is really cool. And then the one that's in my house is down here. This white outline also goes. I have a long house, so it doesn't quite capture the entire house. And you see how it says Xavier left the ward? So I'm outside the boundary. See, there's no more white outline. But if I come back in it, it'll tell you I entered the ward. Now, that's customizable. Both of these things. You can turn this outline off, and you can turn it off from saying that you've entered or left the ward. We'll go over the config file here in a second, but here's another nice feature. You walk in somewhere, and it closes the door behind you. You leave to go out, you're in a hurry. Oh, darn, I forgot to close the door. The ward will shut it for you. And that's not just on your house. That's any door that you entered that's within the ward. Like I have a ward in my mini mall here. And you'll see. See, I just entered the ward. There's the outline. And it said I entered it. So if I go in here and in here and I turn around, you'll see it's going to close these doors. So it shuts the doors for you. That's really neat. Now let's go over the config file a little bit. I haven't messed with the config file, to be honest. I was asked to take a look at it and give my opinion on it. I think it's awesome. I love it. I use my wards, and you just walk over and activate them, and that's it. You're done. And then you can deactivate it if you need. You can also add people to it. So inside your, once you download and install it and you let the game run for the first time and let it do the config file, then you can log out, come into the config file and make your changes. So in the config file, right here, fireplaces inside a ward no longer need constant fueling. This might be a conflict with other mods. I leave this at false, which is what the default is, because I have eternal torches and it works just fine with it. Just leave this set to false. But if you don't have eternal torches, then go ahead and set these to true. And then you never have to worry about wood or fuel or coal or anything for your fire sources, your torches, your fires, stuff like that. And then this, you can read into this and see what all it does too. I'm just going to scroll kind of slow. And then you can do a hotkey. Default is G to toggle the ward on and off. I've never used it, to be honest. I just walk over to them and activate or deactivate them. But you can make a hotkey for them. And then there's a ton of choices for your hotkeys. And then you can turn this on and off too, about having the doors auto close. I leave it on because I think it's neat. I'm constantly, in my videos, you guys have seen me constantly going over opening and closing my doors. So it's kind of nice I don't have to do that anymore. You can turn off, you just make these false. True turns it on, false makes it turn off. So if you don't want them to auto close, false. If you don't want that thing that says like Xavier has entered the ward, Xavier is leaving the ward, you just make these false. Then you can customize the message too that it says. This here in parentheses is the player's name. And then you can change the message also if you want it to say something different when you enter and when you leave. This will increase incoming damage to creatures in the game while they are inside the ward. I just left that at the default 0. But you can change that. You can disable non-permitted users from automatically picking up items. I just leave that to true because that way it's on. Although I play alone, it doesn't matter, but I'm just using that as an example. Enable or disable the auto permit on the wards for the admins on the client side. That's false, so I just leave it there. Again, I play by on my own, by myself. Prevent non-permitted users from interacting with item stands inside the ward. You can change that, make that true or false. Prevent non-permitted users from interacting with portals inside a ward. Prevent non-permitted users from going through a portal inside a ward. Prevent non-permitted users from interacting with your crops and pickables inside a ward. Prevent non-permitted users from interacting with item drops inside a ward. Excuse me. Enable the ward to provide no skill loss on death to those who have access yet die inside the ward. So in other words, this says who has access. So if you permit other users to use the ward, you can enable this true or false for them and yourself to not lose any skill upon death inside the ward. So that's pretty cool. Enables the bubble visual effect on the ward. That's that big blue radius that you see. That's odd. It says enables the bubble visual effect on the wards. I have that, but yet it's set to false, so I'm not sure. I don't know. But mine shows up, like when I'm being, that building or whatever, my house is being attacked, it puts that blue bubble. Maybe there's something different that I'm missing. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't messed with the config file. But this says false, and it does it at my house. I'm not sure. Prevent non-permitted users from entering the warded area, and this applies to all wards. Prevent non-permitted users from interacting with ships that are inside the ward. Prevent food loss inside a ward for permitted players. And then this one is for a health boost. Whether or not you want to have a health boost inside the ward. Like I said, everything on here is default. So how much additional health you would like while you're inside the ward. Then for PvE, whether or not you want PvE forced inside a ward only when it's permitted by the owner. If the PvC force enable is off, this will force PvE only inside the ward. Whether or not you want PvP enabled outside the ward by default. So this one says call to arms beta. Couldn't test this one alone, so report any bugs that you have. But this is supposed to toggle PvP for non-permitted players inside a ward. Attempt to toggle on for all permitted players. Call to arms beta message shown. The default message is call to arms, an enemy has entered your ward. Call to arms, an enemy has entered your ward. Raid protection. Should offline raid protection be turned on? This would prevent non-permitted players from damaging your base if they're inside your ward when you're offline. Minimum number of players required to be online for their warded area to be raided. Please report all bugs. This one is a work in progress. Then this one's for the changelog, whether or not to show the mods updates in the menu's changelog. Stamina boost, whether or not you want to have a stamina boost inside a ward. How much additional stamina you would like while inside a ward. Then for structures, whether or not you want to have indestructible structures inside a ward. If this is set to true, all items are defined. Damage reduction is 100%. The items inside a ward that you want to make indestructible uses M-piece. If the M-piece name contains the string, it will be indestructible. Find a list here. And then it shows you the default value. Reduce incoming damage to the player built structures and items. No weather damage on structure inside wards. Now I'm not sure if this one would be affected like the Torches Eternal, because the Torches Eternal on the mod, excuse me, instead of putting it on true, I left it on false because the Torches Eternal mod takes care of all my fire. So I don't know if the no water damage mod would bump heads with this one. I'm not sure. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Just curious. Auto repair on structures inside wards. So if your building is damaged, it would automatically repair it. That would actually be really cool. Repair amount in percent. And then it would give you how much it would repair it. So that's cool. Ward default. The items required to craft the default ward uses token name limit of 4 items. And then you can look here at GitHub for the table for that. And it shows you what it takes. Should the item be recoverable or not? Goes in order left to right. The amount of each item required to make the default ward. The items required to craft the green ward. Should it be recoverable? Amount of each item required to make the green ward. Amount of poison damage per tick. Does not apply to your tamed animals. But that's for creatures while they're inside the ward. And then so you guys can see most of the stuff the rest of the way down for the wards. What it takes to craft each one. There's a teal one, a green one, a red one, excuse me, and so on. But the top is really what I wanted you guys to see, all the stuff I was reading at the top up here. It is very customizable to the way for your gameplay. So, yeah, that's exciting. I have everything set to default. Like I said, I play in the game on my own. It's just me. But it's really cool. It works really well. I wanted to show this to you guys so that you guys could see that it's far better than the oops, see, I always want to close the door, but I don't have to. See, I left the ward and the door's still shut. Because I did have a question about that. Will the doors close? Like if you go running out, will the door close behind you still when you're outside of the ward? And it does. Because you were inside the ward when the door was opened. So it doesn't matter that you left the ward quickly. It'll still close behind you. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to run this one by you. So much better than the vanilla, which really, to me, doesn't do a heck of a lot in the game as compared to. So, I hope you enjoy it. I'll give you a link down in the description.